Hi, I'm Natalie.
And I'm Stacey.
And I'm Christina. And this is our plant recommendation panel, where you write to us about your spaces and ask a question. Maybe you want a plant recommendation and we answer it. We each give different ideas. So today we have John O., who gardens in USDA Zone 6. He has full sun and acidic soil. And he writes to us, "Hey y'all, I live in a townhouse with a garden bed between my deck and the sidewalk. I planted a climbing rose in 2019 with visions of the plant living up to its tag and growing 12-foot canes that I could train to my fence. Instead of long canes, I'm getting constant dieback. Our winters in Newfoundland, Canada are wet and snowy. Always snowman snow, never powdery. So when we get a dump of snow, it's heavy and sometimes forms small glaciers on our sidewalks that are there for weeks at a time. As shown in the pictures attached, I shovel out the snow to prevent my lavender from cracking under the weight. I love my rose bush for its beautiful flowers, but I'm kind of tired of having to cut back 2/3 of the bush or more every spring because of all the dieback. I want that 12-foot spread of flowers covering my fence like the tag promised. I fertilize once a week in season. I leave all the growth on over the winter, as recommended, to try and preserve as much size as possible. I've planted a Rise Up lilac days in a planter box on my deck, and it's survived the winters with basically no damage. Just needed to prune off last year's rose hips. It's a gorgeous plant. Preferably, I'd like a large, blooming, heavily scented, robust climber for my sidewalk garden box. Any suggestions?" And how about you take it away, Natalie?
All right. So, John, we know from writing in that you live in USDA Zone 6 and you have a full sun location with acidic soil. So, working from that, I first want to say I think your rose is a superstar for how well it has done under this incredible snow load. The pictures that you sent, that is a lot of snow, and that's a lot of load up on that plant. And when it's in bloom, it's absolutely beautiful. But that said, if you want a vine that might better survive your winter conditions and being right on the sidewalk there and near the road, I personally would go with a honeysuckle vine. I've recommended this in the past, but honeysuckle vines are really robust. Scentsation honeysuckle is a beautiful, very fragrant yellow and white flower, very floriferous, loves the full sun, and will spread over your railing area really easily. Hardy in USDA Zone 4 through 9, and I think those yellow flowers really pair well with your purple lavender as well. So it gets about 2 to 4 feet wide. You could even plant one on each side of your rose if you wanted to. Then you'd have a honeysuckle, a rose, and a honeysuckle, and they can all twine together. And who knows, maybe one will protect the other. Hard telling, not knowing. But I did have a second option for you as well, which is also a honeysuckle, but a very different kind of honeysuckle, which is Kintzley's Ghost. And it's a native species, very different. The flower isn't really the star on this vine, the foliage is. So you get that same kind of blue-gray foliage that you have on your lavender, but a whole different texture. It's got that very round eucalyptus-looking texture with your lavender underneath. If you did that, that would be a lot of blue-gray color. I would underplant it maybe with some calibrachoa or something in the summertime, so you could get that drape, the climbing up, and then the draping down over your wall. With that blue-gray, I like something like Superbells Pomegranate Punch calibrachoa. It's got a nice dark red flower, and then I'd accent it with something like a Superbells Double Chiffon, which is a double flower within a really light yellow color, and maybe some trailing million bells or something like that that brings that blue color of your lavender back in. So that's kind of the more aggressive gardening scheme, but I think either one of those would be really beautiful in your front walkway garden.
I hope this is not too late, but John, I hope you did not take out the Joseph's Coat Rose, because I'm going to make a horticultural recommendation for you to give this a try before you take it out and give up on it. You say that you fertilize every week during the season. I don't know what you consider the season, but very often for plants that are susceptible to winter damage, this could be, a more tender climbing rose like yours, or Hydrangea macrophylla. This is a common thing for it to happen. If it is fertilized too late in the season, what happens is that pushes a ton of soft growth that actually increases the winter damage because it didn't have enough time to harden off. So I'm wondering if fertilizing so often is actually kind of increasing the winter damage here. And it would make sense that maybe the Rise Up Lilac Days that's on your deck is either a little bit more protected or a little less susceptible to this, or, for any of those reasons. But I am going to suggest that before you take it out, because it is fabulous, I think you obviously love it, you chose it for this very special spot that doesn't fit a lot of things, I would say I would cut back to fertilizing every 2 weeks, and I would stop fertilizing for you in Newfoundland. I don't know how early your winter set in, but I would say don't fertilize past mid-July. Normally the recommendation is late July. But just to be safe and just to give it a try, next summer, stop fertilizing in mid-July, let all of that growth that pushes harden off, and see if that doesn't decrease the amount of winter damage it gets. So that's my idea. But if you don't want to try that, or hopefully you didn't already take it out, if you want a recommendation, I always feel like when people say they want fragrance, that it's kind of a non-negotiable. And so I really honed in on that for your recommendation. And so my vine replacement would be Sweet Summer Love Clematis. And I mean, we do have relatively few fragrant vines, but if you were in a warm climate, oh my gosh, you'd be spoiled for choice with fragrant vines with big flowers. You would have so many choices, this would go on an hour. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So you have relatively limited choices. And there are a lot of other fragrant vines, but I'm selecting Sweet Summer Love because the fragrance is amazing. And it's the longest blooming, and when you have that limited space, obviously you want the most impact that you can. The impact here is going to come more like mid-July to mid-August. So you're still going to get a good month of blooms and get that fragrance. It's super easy care. It's hardy. It does not seed, so you don't have to worry about it spreading all over like a regular Sweet Autumn Clematis. So I think it'll give you the color that you want and the fragrance.
Well, both of the plants that I was going to recommend have been recommended, but I'm going to talk about it. So I'm going to go under the assumption that you have removed this rose. And I think for a walkway, it can be hard to place a rose that gets really big because then it might also snag clothing. So if you didn't remove it, maybe you could move it onto the porch as well. You could put a trellis up there, watch it flourish. But for that spot, I would recommend embracing the cool tones that you already have there with that beautiful, thriving bunch of lavender, and go with the Sweet Summer Love Clematis right at the center. Incredible bloomer, just heavy blooms, amazing fragrance. And then you would get those, maybe 2 of the Kintzley's Ghosts.
Ooh, that'd be pretty.
On either side to just really soften those edges and make it feel like you're walking up to like a spa. And both of those plants are pretty tough and will perform even if they get dumped on with the snow. Sweet Summer Love blooms on old and new growth, so if it was totally crushed, it'd still be beautiful. And that's my recommendation for you. I think we've given you some pretty cool recommendations, John. So if you end up taking any of our advice, send us a picture. And if you're not John and you would like some advice about your garden, write to us. Click the website below and write us. Send us pictures. We need them.
Pictures.
And we'll see you again next time.